Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Talking Away the Taboo. I am here tonight to bring you some words from people who are just wiser than me, honestly. Rabbi Danny Stein and Rabbi Karen Perolman I was supposed to have a baby board members, but they're also clergy, and they're also people who have been through their own fertility challenges. And so I think, what we're trying to do this time of year is really try to bring you different kinds of voices, different kinds of stories from different kinds of people in our community who have had struggles and had to figure out a way forward, in hopes that that will bring you some source of comfort and strength. So let's grab them. Let's see if I can grab them. Let's see, or else they'll be grabbed. If anybody has any questions for them, please drop them in the chat. We're really just very excited to have this conversation. I will also say that Rabbi Karen Perolman. Sorry, I just made a quick mistake here. Rabbi Karen Perolman actually already on this podcast, on our Talking Away the Taboo, and also her wife, Liz Glazer, shared her piece of the story. And what I can tell you also, here he is. What I can tell you also is that Rabbi Danny Stein and Tamra, the two of them are actually going to be sharing their story as well, coming up on the podcast in another month or so. We're working on finalizing times. But okay, so hi everyone. Thank you so much for being here. Okay, I gave you a little bit of introductions, but just for people who don't know you, tell people about your day job, and maybe also share. I know Karen, you and Liz have shared about your story, and Danny and Tamara, it's coming. But if you can give people just a little bit of a window into how you why I was supposed to have a baby is something that you wanted to be a part of, and how you come to this journey personally. And I think that will set the stage to help frame the conversation that we're going to have today. So Karen, I'm going to come to you first.
Okay, you can hear me, right?
I can hear you.
I feel like all this time. So, hi everybody. I'm Karen Perlman. I'm a Reform rabbi. I work in Short Hills, New Jersey, and where I work at a large Reform synagogue, and I've been there. I've been a rabbi, both been a rabbi and been a rabbi in my community for 16 years. It's really pouring rain. I don't know if where you are it is. I feel like I hear it in surround sound. So, hopefully.
You're good. You're good.
So I'm really privileged to serve a big community and to be with people in lives. I do all kinds of life cycles and holidays, teaching, kids, sort of. I run the gamut of that's my professional life. In my personal life, I'm married to Liz Glazer, who is a lawyer turned comedian, who maybe some of you heard on the podcast with Amy. And we always knew as two women that we would need some kind of fertility help, unless there were miracles we had yet to experience. And so through egg freezing, donor sperm, and IVF, we conceived in 2021. And some of you know, but maybe some of you don't. When I was 34 weeks pregnant, I went into preterm labor, and it turned out that I had undiagnosed preeclampsia and that the baby had intrauterine growth restriction. And so she had stopped growing around 30 weeks, maybe 29 weeks, and she had died within a day of me delivering. And her name is Leo Pearl, and she would be 4 this November, which is kind of unbelievable. And, I was a person who didn't really know what stillbirth was. I had never really known anyone who experienced it. It seemed very, it seemed like an old-fashioned thing to happen, like something like that happened on the Oregon Trail, but it didn't happen like in New Jersey in the 2000s. And so through a lot of grieving and processing and healing and talking and writing, um, about 9 months after we lost Leo, we tried again. And about 9 months later, we had another daughter, Eloise, who is 2.5. And so there's a sweet end to that part of the story, but never without the other things that come with it.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing both of their stories. Again, I know they're both incredibly important and amazing parts of your lives.
Thank you.
Um, Rabbi Danny.
Thanks, Rabbi Karen, for sharing. It's meaningful to be here, chatting with everybody, especially during this moment. When there's lots of running around to do. It's a reminder to just sit and be in community and talk. So I live in New York on the Upper West Side, alongside my wife and our 2 children, and we've been in New York for over 2 years, and I'm the rabbi of a community called Base Upper West Side, when we build pluralistic Jewish community for folks in their 20s and 30s based out of our home. And Base is a part of MEM Global, formerly known as Moishe House, which builds community for folks in their 20s and 30s all over the world. We're blessed to have two kids who bring us a lot of joy every day. And our journey started actually, I remember on Yom Kippur, when several years ago, when Tamara on Yom Kippur said that she was pregnant, which was a joyous thing. And then later learning that there was a chromosomal abnormality, trisomy 16, and that it was very clear that like the growth was not going to continue, and so Tamara had a series of abortions to remove the fetus from her body, and complications, and so had to unfortunately be multiple surgeries, and we were heartbroken and didn't know what to do. Nobody knew that Tamara was pregnant, so I had to tell people Tamara was pregnant, and also had this missed abortion, and completely shattered my world of like what it means to live. Thank God, like up until that moment, I hadn't had a pretty tough life, and so completely shattered my world and our world. And then we told people we had to tell, and went through various elements of grief, and then wanted to continue trying to build our family. And then again, with the next pregnancy, the exact same chromosomal abnormality, trisomy 16, which is like such a minimal chance of that happening twice in a row. So we thought, okay, maybe something's going on. And again, another abortion. After that, fetus was found to not be viable. And then that led us to IVF, to Boston IVF, which was a really sweet experience. A lot of nerves that came in the IVF experience, but the nurses and the doctors there were incredibly gentle and wonderful. And thank God, our daughter Ruthie was born on October 7th, actually, 2023. And so a lot of different emotions with that birthday. But she brought a lot of light to our life and to a lot of other people's lives on that dark day. And then we were blessed to have another child born in November 2024, our daughter Avi. And I think that the biggest takeaway I have, and I think Tamara has as well, from our journey is just it made us deeply more empathetic people. And it brought out an empathy in us that I think was not possible if it were not for our experiences, which still very much live in our everyday lives.
Thank you. I I knew some pieces of your story, the two of your stories, but and obviously there's so much more to share, and we're going to do that at a later episode. But I thank you for opening up even this small amount here to help frame the conversation. And I think, you know, the conversation is an obvious one, and it's the reason why I reached out to both of you, I don't know, a little bit ago, saying like, you know, how do we even do this? Like, how do we, in this time of year, how do we, and I was supposed to have a baby, but also personally and professionally for the two of you, how do you do this? Like, how do you go through this time of year knowing everything that you know because you've experienced the deepest highs and also the deepest lows, and also your responsibility is also to carry other people who are also in the midst of those waves. um and so I'm going to come right back and say, like, how, maybe, Danny, if I can come to you first and say, what like what let's start with like the personal, and then we'll go into the more communal. How did you get through, like you said, on Yom Kippur? Like, this all started, this your story started on Yom Kippur. Like, how did the two of you do this?
Yeah. Well, I failed to mention the first part of your question, or one part of your first question of coming to Iowa supposed to have baby, which was an immense source of strength for us. And I know thousands of other people, and mainly through the Instagram page at first, and how the Instagram page, the rawness and the frankness and the reality of what it means to go through a variety of types of experiences, like, really was there for us. But we knew who we could support, or who could support us, and we knew who weren't the best supports. Um, and we also took a lot of inward time for ourselves. And we removed ourselves from a lot of situations. There's been several brises I've skipped, and baby namings, and l'chaims for people who are expecting, and we removed ourselves from a lot of different things, because we really had to. But for me, it really, prayer, I feel like my relationship with God matured so much in this experience, and prayer was foundational. I feel lucky that I had a prayer practice beforehand, and it really helped ground me, my prayer practice, mainly my personal prayer practice when I'm by myself. Um, when I was in rabbinical school, I was working at a hospital in the chaplaincy training program that a lot of rabbinical students and seminary students do. And I remember talking with, I think she was Catholic, an elderly Catholic woman, about God. She was very sick, and she said for her, God is like walking with a friend, strolling with a friend through a garden, or something like that. And obviously, she has a very different conception of God than I do. But like, that was such an intimate feeling that I actually didn't have that intimate connection with God until we started going through our miscarriages and our fertility journey. That, like, it had to be so real. I had to give my whole self in my prayer, and to really feel that God was there in my pain. In the narrow, the deepest, darkest places I've been in, God is there, which was not always easy. But I had to have that source of comfort and hand-holding, so to speak, from God. It was a huge source of strength. Additionally, of course, to Tamara and the strength that we gave each other, and loving support networks. But prayer and my relationship with God really helped carry me through it.
I'm going to just push you a little bit more. Do you, like, were there specific things, like, did you add certain things, like, did you did you like like a lot of times people in their moments of pain,
Yeah.
what they either kind of like they don't just stay the same, that it usually things either deepen in terms of their relationship to God, or like it just like it becomes more distant. Like the sameness doesn't exist. And you spoke about that a little bit, like that you really felt like that connection deepened. I'm curious, like was it just something that you felt and you felt like it relationally, or were there things that you practically like put into place or that you pushed away?
Both. First off, I really struggle with the idea that of of God putting challenges in our way to teach us a lesson, or everything happens for a reason. I struggle with that theology often, and yet, like, I'm living in a world where pain happens, and I live in God's created world. And so, how do I wrestle with those, with struggling with not knowing really? Like, I can never know why things happen, but also struggling to say this is from God for this reason. I think on a very practical level, my individual prayer became more, you know, crying or shouting, or really like bringing more of myself into the experience, meditating on certain parts in our liturgy, and just giving myself permission to sit in my prayers, and not feel like I had to rush or do things because of a certain reason, but like really sit in the prayers for an experience that moved me. And I think of around the time I learned Rabbi Nachman Torah, that teaches that a person should set, you know, a certain time of day every day to break their heart open to God and speak to God with a broken heart, and that felt like a very crucial piece of that moment.
Karen?
You know, right, Danny, it's like you kind of, as you were speaking, I was sort of transported back to a few moments. I guess it took me a while to be angry with God. I think that, the way that it was presented to us, um, one of the doctors who was with us, you know, told my wife, like, I know you think this is the worst case scenario, but like, this is not the worst case scenario, aka I was okay. And I mean, he didn't have such a way with words, but I think there was a part of me that was like, I wanted to not be alone. It's so lonely, it's so isolating. And I think I felt like if I lost God, then I really was going to be by myself. Like there was really, there was, who else? What else? Um, but I really found myself, I wish I could say that I like found some deeper, like spiritual practice right away. I really felt like I like learned how to sort of break myself into two, and I was able to work. I would go to work and I would be sort of at work, and then I would come home and sort of have this other part of my life. I really found a lot of meaning. Um, there's all kinds of the Jewish law around stillbirth is actually like a little bit complicated. It's not exactly black and white, and so we chose to observe a burial. We gave our daughter a Hebrew name. We said Kaddish. I wore a kriya ribbon, a torn ribbon, and there was something about that felt really powerful to like claim Jewish ritual in that way. Um, and to also claim, I had never really experienced Shiva. We didn't exactly sit Shiva. I just mostly stayed home because I didn't want to be anywhere. But I remember feeling like, it was about the shloshim. It was about the 30-day mark that I remember like leaving the house for the first time by myself, like going out to do something, going to even just like get coffee. I remember it being around that time. Um, and I think, I mean, I remember feeling like it was all I could do to really just put one foot in front of the other. Like there was nothing else to do. It was to keep going. And one of the things that actually I haven't really talked about so publicly, but is not a secret, is that not long after we lost Leo, I had never been a big drinker. I had never really, I thought, had a problem with alcohol, but um, I started to see places that I thought, oh, I think that maybe this actually is something that I need to think about. And so I stopped drinking on December 5th, 2021, and I haven't drank since. And you know, it was one of the things that actually became a part of my spiritual practice, which is that I'm not going to disconnect. I'm not going to numb out. I'm not going to, I mean, I'll go for a walk, I'll put on a podcast, I'll sit in my car and cry, I'll scream, but I'm not going to like disconnect from my pain. And it's actually been, I think, in some ways, one of the most transformative parts for me has been just agreeing to stay in it, agreeing to stay in my pain, agreeing to stay, sort of present in this moment. Um, and, I think that for a while I really did the like, why me? Why, even if God would do this, why would God do it to me? That is, I think, so normal and natural. And, I read this story about Joe Biden when he returned to the Senate after his wife and daughter were killed in the car accident, or maybe both his daughters, I don't remember. And I think he was like riding the train. I might not be getting the story right. And he's like, well, why me? And someone's like, well, why not you? Like, this is not like, none of us, I wish I could say, I was so lucky, but it sort of is just like, well, it sort of is just how it is. And I found, I would say to Rabbi Day's comment, I found a community of people who need this Torah and um, who need to be able to know that there are other people who understand and who are, struggling with with the news of other people expecting of the family they imagined. I think, twice sometimes I say to people, I was supposed to have a baby is such a great line because it's like, well, when, where, how many, I had this vision of what my life would look like and it changed and I had to. The last thing I'll just say is, I was pregnant on Rosh Hashanah in 2021. So I remember it was like really my coming out because people saw me and then we did our embryo transfer like 10 days before Rosh Hashanah in 2022. So it actually turns out that I was pregnant two Rosh Hashanahs in a row. And I don't know if there's, if God wanted to, I thought it was actually a really like meaningful thing for me that I felt like, Yom Harat Olam, this is like the day of this world's immersion into the universe. And it felt really, I don't know. It's not a day that was ruined for me. A lot of other days were ruined, but it wasn't a day that was ruined.
I appreciate that. And like I'm going to push you further and say, great, it was not a day that was ruined for
Yeah.
you. And like and this is also for both of you, right? There is, I mean, unitana tokef, right? It's
Mm,
like who will live, who will die, who will be created, who will be extinguished. I mean, on and on and on and on, right? I particularly, I'm going to use myself as the example here. There was one Rosh Hashanah for me where I had just miscarried like a couple of weeks beforehand, like 2 weeks before Rosh Hashanah. And that was the second loss I had that year. And there was like, I didn't go to shul that year because it was like, I was a mess. And I had a very difficult time coming to terms with like last year, God decided that I was going to lose two babies, not one. Like that this was gonna like and so I'm wondering for both of you, being that the two of you have experienced deep, deep pain, and you sit in a space where you counsel people who are coming to you in deep, deep pain. What do you say? What do you say? Because we all know, right? The things like I always ask people, tell me what worked for you. Tell me what was helpful for you. Tell me how you got through.
Mhm.
Because not because it's a prescription for other people, but sometimes people can find like a glimmer in there and they'd be like, oh, yeah, I relate to that. And maybe I could take a little bit of it. But you can't tell people like, go do this and you'll be fine. Like that doesn't work. Or just think in this way and then you'll be fine. So I- what do you say to people? What do you say to people? Either one. I know there's no silence here because nobody either one.
Do you want to go first?
I mean, I guess I'll say that, I mean, obviously, Unatara Tokaf, it's hard, it's hard to argue with that. But I also think that, I gave a sermon a few years ago about mental health, and I used Unatara Tokaf about that, like, who shall live and who shall die gets the most airtime, but who shall wander, who shall be pain, who shall rest, who shall be, could go through all of them. So I think there's that. I think that like the prayer is long, and like actually there's moments of like actually, one of the things that's amazing about liturgy is just the way in which the more you say it, the more you see things that you maybe have not seen before. For me, the hard line is, you know, who will go at a ripe age and who will not. And it's very hard to understand, um, a dear friend lost her bubby this week who would have been 100 in a few weeks. So it's like, wow, that is, I mean, you almost can't argue with that. A lot of people would sign up for 99 and, going peacefully. And, like what, but, and it's not just Leo. It's like, there's lots of people who did not live out the fullness of their life, or did they? But I think theologically it gets really complicated to start with, like, the book of life. Like when in 2021, like God didn't write her into the book of life, but God wrote me into the book of life, and like that literalism, I think, is really complicated. Um, And I don't, I haven't quite figured out what to do with it. I think there's moments during those prayer services that I feel a little like disassociated, like, like don't go too far in there because you could like not come out and then you have to like get up and call the next page number because there's a new, part of it is as a leader, I have agreed to lead. I've agreed to sort of be a spiritual leader, and that means that I have to do some of my own spiritual work in other places. Um, I think the Torah reading on the holidays is brutal. I don't know anyone who I think the Akedah is brutal. I think whether you have lost children or not, I think it's brutal. I think Hannah is kind of a brutal story in its own way. I think Hagar is brutal. I think, it's like all of it feels really like, I would almost say like misogynistic. It's like really harsh. Um, And yet, I'm part of a religious community that, we read on Yom Kippur afternoon, we take out the verses from Kiddushim that don't align with our values, and yet we still read all these other things. So, yeah, I find that really difficult.
And I specifically love the way you actually didn't tie that very neatly up into a bow.
Nope, no bow for me.
Yeah. From Danny.
I part of the reason we're such big fans of Bible Supposed to Have Babies, like the societal change, the Jewish societal change that is happening because of communities like I Was Supposed to Have a Baby, of conversations happening where they wouldn't normally happen. And we work with 20s and 30s people, many people in our community who are going through various fertility journeys of their own. And we, from the very beginning of starting Base Up West Side, we make a lot of very explicit, obvious. We talk a lot about our story, about our family story, not so much in detail, but like we share openly that we had a fertility journey of our own all the time, because we want people to know that it's a part of our story and it should be talked about in Jewish community. As I say, just like synagogues have Avelut morning classes for when, God forbid, you have to go through mourning, you've taken a class, you know what to do. Synagogues, Jewish communities needs to be talking about fertility issues, as well as a variety of other things that we encounter in life, to know how best to support ourselves and others when it happens. So we talk openly about it in our community, on our link tree. So those watching now, on our link tree and on our emails, at the bottom there's a form, fertility Google form, that folks can fill out, and I get a notification when people fill it out that says basically, hey, I'm going through a challenge, I want you to contact me. So that's out there, and we have a number of programming around. Amy, you've been a guest for them before, around fertility, IVF, abortion, to really bring it to the forefront. So that's what I first think about, because if we're not talking about it openly at the beginning, it's much harder to support community members. I see my role. I'm a very new rabbi. I've only been a rabbi for 2 and something years, so I imagine I'll be very different in 20 years. But I see my role as being a pastoral spiritual presence for folks. I'm certainly not providing any answers as to why whatever happened or is happening happened or is happening. But I see my role to say, I think it's a significant thing to have a rabbi who's more or less your age, because I live in the demographic in which I'm serving, say, I'm here with you in your pain, and Jewish tradition is here with you, and God is with you, Torah is with you in your pain as well. And just to acknowledge the pain and sit in the pain together I think means a lot. And of course, to give people the supports that they need, that I'm able to give or to refer. But just to sit with people in their pain is, I think, the most significant and important thing that I can do in this moment. And it never hurts to reach out to people and say, I know Rosh Hashanah is coming up, I know Passover is coming up, you're going through this hard time, you're going through your IVF journey, just thinking about you. And I think it means a lot. I think it means a lot for folks to hear from their rabbis in those moments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you think I if when you give messages on high, when the two of you give messages on high and you deal with these complicated themes of you know, all the good and all the bad, and we wrap this all up in now, specifically this time of year, right now, right? We're dealing with Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. October 7th is in 5 seconds. October is Infant and Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month. I mean, there is so much right now. Like, how do you, again, like, we're not tying this in a bow. It's impossible to tie it in a bow, but to the words that you're giving to people on high of how to get through this time. Like, the two of you have mentioned certain things that you've done individually, of you've needed your own private time, you've needed to say no. Like, what are you sharing with your people who are just finding this time really hard, that you're giving them the spiritual guidance, the, theological guidance, but that they're still just really struggling and just don't know how they're going to make it through the next month? What do you say to them?
I mean, I'm a big fan of, like, I sometimes call it like the rabbinic permission slip. Like, you don't need it, but I'm happy to give it to you, which is to take care of yourself and to, mark this season in a way that is you know, actually going to be meaningful for you. And I my synagogue just made we tried something new for Rosh Hashanah about moving a family service from the morning to the evening. And we, like, as you can imagine, like, half the people thought it was great and half the people didn't like it or something like that. And, one of the things that we heard was that there were people who were upset we moved it because they couldn't go to dinner with their families or they would have to choose. And I was thinking about a family that I met at the service. It was, like a tot service, who said, we don't have any family here. Like, we wouldn't have had anything to do. So I'm really glad you moved it. So I think part of it is, uh, I think that Judaism really allows us to sort of, I don't want to say experiment, but to try things that are going to feel right to you and that are going to nourish you and take care of you. And, I think that we sometimes, let perfection be the enemy of the good, that, the holiday is not going to look like, you know, I don't know, the painting, your Bubby's memory, like, and you're, what do you call a Jew who, doesn't eat apples and honey? Still a Jew. There's no, like, there's no test. And I think that also, I'm, I don't want to give too much away, but my sermon that I'm giving on Yom Kippur is about joy, because I actually think that there's a million places in the world to get the bad news, and we really have to figure out what to do, because you're right. I mean, October 7th, I mean, there's an infinite amount of ways in which we can fall into despair. And I think Judaism pushes us to continue it all and to continue it joyfully. Um, I guess I would say that one thing that I've done is I'm, you know, Danny, I think that's such an interesting, like, thing to really, like, put it out there, to say, I want to know if you're going through this journey, because I think that part of what happens is that we only know about the journeys, like, either when it ends and there's good news, or it ends and there's bad news. And so being with people, I think that, the vulnerability it takes to share that you're going through this. I mean, journey, it's such a, I don't know, I feel like a cringy word, but it's true, because it can be, 6 months, a year, 2 years. I mean, it's like the journey, and when does the journey end? I think it's really powerful to invite people to do that, because also then you can support them. you know I don't know, I think about, like, Mother's Day and Father's Day, and, like, those days that feel really happy to a lot of people. Like, today's one of those national made up holidays, like National Daughter's Day.
Yes.
And I was like,
Yes, I'm seeing it all over social media, people
and I'm
posting with their
like,
daughters. Yeah.
and then I think, like, well, am I supposed to post something? And, like, should I, like, make this a moment to, like, remind people? And then I'm like, do I, there's that, like, ways in which, I don't know. I think there's ways in which we can be teachers, and there's ways in which we also still have to protect our hearts and our lives.
I agree with everything you said. Um, I think the things I'm thinking about is one, again, um, I think it's always a good idea to reach out. I mean, not excessively, but like always a good idea to reach out um, without any responsibility for a response. But I find that's helpful. Like we send food to people and emails um, and also giving people permission as well to just sit in their pain, and it's it's okay to not be okay, and we don't have to try to fix it. I remember I told my mom uh, when we were really in the heart of it. She says, Danny, I'm worried that you're not okay. I said, I'm not okay, but I know eventually I will be. But right now, I'm not okay, and I'm just going to let that be, and really allowing that for people. Uh, I think about often also in the discussion in the Talmud, Masechet Yom, on the volume of Yom Kippur, when asked the question about like, can a pregnant person eat on Yom Kippur? Can a sick person eat on Yom Kippur? And there's this really interesting discussion about if a sick person says that they do have to eat, but the doctors, the experts say they don't have to eat, you actually have the sick person eat. Because the quote that's given is from Proverbs, Lev Yodet Merat Nafsho, the heart knows the bitterness of its soul. And for me, that just speaks so deeply to like each of us knows our soul's the best and knows what we need in this moment, for this holiday, for this Shabbat, for this Tuesday. Like we know what we need in this moment. Yes, we have to be supported by community and by our tradition, but we have to do what's right for us in this moment. And that is something that I try to preach on and share with others, because for me it was comforting, and I hope it provides comfort to others as well.
I love that. I love that. I think it's so powerful. So powerful. I wanna address, someone wrote in the comments here. She said, I struggle with the why, especially Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Why would God do this to a baby? Why me? Do I pray for a healthy baby, or do I pray to fix my broken heart? I'm so glad the two of you are here to try to take a stab at that, because I would not be able to do that.
I mean, wow, that's like, I mean, that may be the I don't know what they, that's the question, right? Like in rabbinical school, we learned about something called the theodicy, which is basically the like, why do bad things happen to good people, right? This is the ultimate theological question that every theologian, every philosopher has been trying to answer for thousands of years. They've been asked, they were doing it in the Middle Ages, they were doing it in, after the Holocaust. And I always come back to um, someone who, was going through a very difficult time, said, where's that book, Why Bad Things Happen to Good People? And the book, of course, is called When Bad Things Happen to Good People. And like the learning there, I think, is that like there is, I mean, why? I don't, why? There is no, I mean, maybe there's an answer. I don't, I guess I don't really feel like any answer would be good enough. But, Judaism has a lot to say about when, and it has a lot to say about the ways in which broken-hearted people are loved and supported. Um, I feel like you can pray for whatever you want. I think you can pray that, you're able to feel, to to heal the brokenness. I think is something a lot of people have prayed for. I think that's probably what Hannah was praying for in her own way. Um, and I think praying for health is never a bad thing. And I think praying for, you know, the strength to withstand the challenges that life will hand you. and the strength and the compassion you can show to yourself. I think, and I think you can also pray that that it doesn't feel so hard, like it feels less burdensome. Like I think I remember a moment where I was like, I actually don't think I can I do not think I can physically like handle the weight of this, and maybe it just can feel one ounce lighter.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, it's such a difficult question, and I don't have an answer as to why God would do this. I Something that I found for me, I'll speak personally, that was really helpful was any small moment happening in my life to really hold on to that. Any small joyous moment in my life to really hold on to that, and really celebrate it. Certainly on our fertility journey, if we, had a retrieval or got our medication delivered or um, whatever, like celebrating the tiniest things. Um, and I think hindsight is a very beautiful gift, but a difficult gift. And for folks who do have some sort of happy ending, I'll put it in quotes, which not everybody does, um, have the family they dream of and the ending that they want. But at times when we do have some sort of happy ending, it's a lot easier to look in hindsight at to how the journey led us to this moment. Um, I drew a lot of strength from moments like in our Purim story or Joseph's going down to Egypt and going down to a very low place um, to eventually come up to a higher spiritual place. And I've only been able to draw strength from those stories because of going through a journey and eventually get into a happier, higher place, so to speak. And if you had told me after 2 miscarriages, you're in a really low place right now, but don't worry, like because like this is like going to be great for you spiritually and emotionally, like I would be like, get out of my face right now. And if anybody else said that to me besides me, like no. But this is where I'm at in my personal journey, and how hindsight has helped me. I think praying for healing of a broken heart and praying for a baby, like God willing, like both of these are so essential, um, and so needed. And to take, if this is important to you, take every moment you can to pray, um, and to have the strength for that, and to be in community that really supports you. Um, it's it's an awful thing, and I hope that none of us had to go through this.
I remember at when I was like, I think it was after the fourth of my second trimester losses, and that the healing for me, I stopped praying for a baby because it just felt like it wasn't going to happen. It was just like, and I wasn't even praying to fix my broken heart. I was praying to just be okay, like come back to baseline. And I don't know if that is helpful to you, to anyone out there, but I think in my own non-clergy way and my own non-clergy background, I just wanted to come back to some semblance of normalcy. And that's what I spent a lot of time that Rosh Hashanah doing. Like, just get me to a place where I'm not just like steeped in this all the time. Like, I just need to come back. Um, all right, I want to do this one last question here, and then we're going to turn it, and I'm going to ask you a lighter question to end because we can't stay down here forever. We can't. But one last question here. I struggle with having 4 losses this year and how going to shul or going to synagogue and people making comments. How do you guide your communities in terms of the making the comments to other people? Or because there are maybe people, there are people we know in all of our communities We know there are people that are struggling. We know there are people who are going through difficult things. So the question is yeah, how do you guide your communities? What do you say to them so that they can be careful in terms of what they say? And I'm going to add my own piece and say there is a balance there, right? Like, I think there might be a version of this where someone would say like, well, don't ever talk about your children because you never know who might be struggling, or don't ever like, you know, don't ever mention like that you might be pregnant because you don't know who might be struggling. Like, I think like that's not realistic. And it's also just not real life. Like, people go through lots of different kinds of things. And even those of us who struggle, we can't put ourselves in a bubble. Like, we have to also be able to deal with the real world. So where is that balance and what do you say? And maybe I'm going to turn to you, Rev Danny.
Um, First off, I'm so sorry to hear about your losses. I pray that you have comfort of others and of community and of some light ahead. Um, uh, I think I'm going to go back to like what I mentioned earlier. I think just talking about fertility issues, loss, uh, as much as possible is, I think, really important um, to help break the stigma and make sure folks know that it's a very common thing. Um, I'm gonna actually pause. I have a bunch of things simmering. I'll pass it over to Rabbi if you want. Yeah.
I mean, I think one thing is that, you know, I was thinking about after Rosh Hashanah, it's like we happen to have this like outdoor space. So everyone's outside and there's all the hugging and the talking. And I saw like literally like four congregants who all told me that they are, God willing, becoming grandparents. So like their children or whatever. And there's a part of me that like is almost like I want to be careful because they're like, she's having a baby in April. And I'm like like I actually or whatever, like whatever, maybe that's, they're not right timing, but I think there's a part of me that tries to separate to say like, okay, you're feeling this joy. And in this moment, what you want from me is I can be like a mirror to say, wow, I hope, I'm also really careful that I like, you know, I say things that are true. Like, I hope she's feeling well. I hope it all, and not to say like, well, here are all the litany of things that can go wrong, right? Like that's not my role. But I do think my role can be to be with people in life and, for to celebrate life's highs and to be with people in their lows. And I think um, I think that I, you know, I, I, I don't know. I mean, this is a tough one. These are all tough ones because, the think that the holidays, there's a lot of pressure put on us to like get everything out of them that we can, like really really go in, here's a teaching, here's a, and I guess I think the balance is to, like, God willing, there are many more years and you can engage in ways that you want. I was thinking, my synagogue has a custom that the spouses of the clergy come up and light the candles on Erev Rosh Hashanah. And this year, due to the family service switching, which I mentioned before, we invited our children. They invited our children to come up. And for me, it was so beautiful. Like I actually like it was the best moment, like to see my wife and my daughter and to like be there. And I thought about an older version of me, a past version of me that would have gutted me. And so I think we're always trying to strike a balance of being there for people, and also, I try and let my experience make me more sensitive instead of more like fearful. Like just sensitive, like sensitive to people's excitement, sensitive to people's, you know, and sensitive to people who say the wrong thing, people who say things like, like, so when Rabbi, when are you gonna have another baby? I mean, that's the kind of thing. And it's like, in that moment, I might want to say, well, here are some not very rabbinic things to say, but also I can say, I can say something else. And so that's a lot of rambling thoughts, but um, to the commenter, I'm thinking of you and I'm sorry.
I'll add one thing you made me think of that I think just I'm a big fan of one line can change everything. And when there's a joyous occasion, um, a baby naming a bris, or like at our, we're members of a synagogue as well. And like, when they bless the kids on Shabbat, one line in this joyous moment saying, "We are thinking of those in our community who struggle to grow their family." A simple thing has meant the world for us, and I know it means a lot for other people, um, and yet that's like not a common thing, I think, in my experience. Um, and so I think that kind of modeling is really important. Show that yes, there's simcha, but like there's so much sorrow around us, and we can hold both at the same time without taking away from the simcha.
I love that. I love that. And that's, I think, what all of us are trying to do, right? That we're trying to be the source of hope and the source of comfort for people at the same time, that we to try to give them both. And it's not so easy, but we try to give them both. Okay, the two of you have been so incredibly kind and generous in the busiest time of year, I know, for everyone. I mean, for everyone and specifically for clergy. But I just have one fun question that I need answered before we go. What is your like one or two top favorite foods that you love to eat this time of year? This I'm all about food. Like I've been making briskets and like all the things forever. And so I'm always interested in what other people love to eat, because then I think like, oh, maybe I'll like make that and we should start a recipe share. But that's my side gig. So we're not gonna we won't do that here necessarily. And I was supposed to have a baby, but um favorite foods. Favorite foods. Danny, I'm coming to you because you look like you have an answer to this, whereas Karen looks like she's still contemplating.
I
So
know.
Well, this time of year, I would say I've never made them, but apple cider donuts are a must. Yeah, apple cider donuts are a must. And
okay.
we did our Rosh Hashanah dinner, and it came with this like honey cake thing that was incredible. And so I'm thinking about that a lot.
Where did you cater from?
Oh wow, look at this plug. J Squared Catering. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, there you go.
All right. Excellent. Excellent.
Oh,
All right, Karen. Sorry.
I
It's going to
love
be
it.
difficult, but you got to do
Mm.
it.
No, I love it all. I mean, I think you can't. I mean, I love a brisket. I love a kasha. I mean, I really am like, I have like I really love like a really like Ashkenazi forward. I would say that like probably my favorite moment of the holidays is the like first bite of bagel and lox after the fast. And I like almost always have like a Diet Coke or a cup of coffee with it, even though it's nighttime. And I feel like that is just like, it's such a satisfying experience to eat that. It's like the best bagel and lox you can ever have. And we go to a friend's house, and she actually, she takes bagel orders. So when you get there, you have a like a special bagel that you've ordered the flavor of, and so I get to eat my favorite combination, which is also very controversial, a cinnamon raisin bagel with cream cheese and lox. And that is the best post fast. For me, at least. I can't speak for everyone, but for me.
I was almost all the way there with
I
you.
know, but till the cinnamon
I was like,
raisin.
the bagel and lox
Yeah,
podcast, you are 1,000% right
I
about there.
understand. It's
And
really
then
it's controversial.
it's okay. I still like you. We're still
Yes.
friends. It's all
Good. I'm
good.
glad. Yes.
And you're kind of making me think that maybe I should try it just to kind of see what it's all about. But
Sure.
I'll report back. I'll report back. Um, Rabbi Karen, Rabbi Danny, thank you both so much. This was such a needed conversation. I know for the community at large, for me personally, but like I really deeply thank you both. And for all of you out there, wherever you are, whatever you're holding, we are here to try to bring some kind of comfort and shape and hugs and support in whatever the messy and whatever the joy, all of the pieces. We're here to hold all of it. But thank you both again. Thank you.
Yep.
Shana Tova, everyone.
Shana Tova.
Shana Tova and Gemar Tov. Good night, everybody.
Bye.